everybody. Welcome to Ask the Anabolic Doc, starring Dr. Thomas O'Connor, brought to you by his websites, anabolicdoc.com, metabolicdoc.com. Today we have a treat for you guys. We have one of the only other doctors in the world who is an expert on this subject, anabolic steroids, issues associated with it, and so forth. He is Dr. George M. Touliatos from Athens, Greece. He's the author of Bodybuilding, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. And Dr. George, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, Ron. Thank you for the invitation, and nice to see my friend and colleague, Thomas O'Connor. We are the medical associates on Anabolics book of Bill Welling.
Yeah.
And it's nice to always exchange ideas about our sport in a medical aspect.
Okay. Now,
good to see you, George. Dr. T.
Dr. O'Connor has a couple times told us how he got to become the anabolic doc. How did you become interested in this subject matter and become an expert on it, Dr. Touliatos?
Yes, I was a competitive bodybuilder soon after I graduated from medical school. So at the age of 26, I wanted to compete and see, I was training since high school, but I wanted, since I was a competitive athlete in track and field, in athletics, I wanted to see how I could manage to compete against the best. So, yes, I started using drugs, of course, at the age of 26 and experimented myself. And I could say that I was combining my theoretical point of view from medical stuff and the allegedly, the broad science, the experimental stuff. So later, when I won my first competition, I had this dream, in order one day to be the doctor of bodybuilding in Greece. And I was a fan of William Llewellyn, and I was reading his anabolic books. And, my dream came true when I finally met him online in 2014 and 2015 on summer. He asked me if I could contribute on his website, Anabolic.org. So I started writing articles for him, and then one day he popped the news that he's working on the 11th edition, and then later I found out that Thomas O'Connor would be the doctor responsible for the chapter of hypothalamic pituitary testicular axis, and the things a bodybuilder faces after he wants to withdraw from steroids. And by the way, I have talked online with Thomas O'Connor. We did a Skype between each other, and then I posted. And in one of your muscular development videos, he told you about me. He mentioned about Dr. T in Greece. Yes.
Yeah.
So I started writing books in Greek, since 2012. And I can say I have this kind of monopoly because there's no other doctor who combines the competitive part of the sports and the drug use, along with the theoretical aspects. As a biopathologist, what I do is prevention, read the labs and advise them, suggest them, and do a consultation about how they can manage using the drugs in a healthy aspect with the minor side effects, or how to minimize the side effects and improve the labs.
Okay. Dr. O'Connor, I want to let you basically interview him because, you guys are on different ends of the world and totally different situations in the United States and Greece, I'm sure. So, some questions from you as to how the practice would differ over there, and the ethical situations might be different in Greece than the United States, dealing with athletes and people who use steroids recreationally.
Wow. So this is a huge show, and Dr. T, thank you so much for coming on. First off, we have to say...
Your book is very good, huh?
Oh, thank you so much, George. Yeah. Thanks, Doc. So, and you have to look at it. Why is it just me and Dr. Touliatos in Greece, of the whole world, that we have the courage and the ethical stance to come out and to say, enough of the BS. We have to look at this and say, this is an epidemic. People are using these drugs. They could certainly get hurt. Why aren't we helping them? So that's the first piece. And now I'm in America, and imagine the politics with Major League Baseball and the congressional hearings against steroids and liars. you have we have MLB, right? We have the NFL, and the highlight of steroids became gobbled up by them. So this is America. Greece obviously, you know, has great athletes, no question. There's no wonder, but we have this huge multiple billion-dollar market called professional sports, not Olympic sports, right? So then that's the piece, right? So then we have, but apart from the common man who doesn't know this, but maybe knows it now more because of my work and Dr. T's work, that there's millions and millions of men, not to mention women, using steroids for personal reasons. From top bodybuilders, they're really not even breaking the law because no one checks for steroids, right?
Right.
So and then we come all the way down to a gym rat or a woman who likes to be on some Anavar, right, Dr. T, or Winstrol, because it makes your body. So we have that to open up with. I have to open up with that. I'm in America. I have a drug, a license to prescribe medicine. So in my country, I took an approach not necessarily different than Dr. T's, that there's millions of people. This is 10 years ago. I was writing for Muscular Development since 2009 now. I was doing this before because I saw an ethical need. Men are using steroids. Anyway, the men that I could deal with. Women I don't deal with medically. So men use steroids. What are we doing about it, guys, doctors, people? What are we doing? We're doing nothing. I think it's wrong. So I decided to say, ethically, if you're using steroids, come in to see me and let's see what I can do for you. Just like Dr. T, we're both. He's a. In this country, I'm an internist. George is a biopathologist. He's similar, very similar, if not exactly the same. It's really a semantic.
We both share pathology.
So he's really, in this country, we'd say it's a pathologist that looks under the microscope and understands lab values more than me, and so on and so forth. But he's been educated, and he's also like a general practitioner. He also understands hypertension, diabetes. He understands dyslipidemia. He understands the pathophysiological models of the heart and the kidney and the internal organs. Now, that who does? Doctors are very good that understand that, but then they lack the understanding and compassion of anabolic steroid use. So George and I are one of the two only doctors in the world that both understand medicine, we're certified in medicine, we're legitimate doctors, and we understand the bro science, and we've melded it together. But in this country, I have to be careful that men who come in using steroids, I evaluate them, and we look at the red blood cells, the blood pressure, the cholesterol, the kidneys, if they have a heart attack. We look at the same things he does. George and I both understand on that level what the pathophysiology is that other doctors don't. And then the difference maybe with me is that I have to proceed carefully forward, saying that if you've had damage, here's how I can protect you. If you're on steroids and you're hypertensive, I ask you to come off steroids and let me recover you, but I can definitely give you a medicine to protect your heart and your kidneys while you're doing steroids. And then that's how I proceed forward, and I wrote my book, and I'm very happy to say that every physician that's called me in contact, I can't even return the calls or the emails. They're saying, thank you so much, can you help me? These are doctors, can you, in this country and abroad, Dr. O'Connor, I have all these patients on steroids, can you help me? So they now feel safe. They feel safe in part from myself and Dr. T. So we're the first two in the world. People criticize me for being an arrogant, bombastic son of a bitch. And you know what? I do it for my patients. So that's my opening. I'll be true to myself. That's how I am. And now, Dr. T, what do you think about that?
Well, Thomas, there's a negative propaganda and a prejudice regarding the drug's use. Now, of course, from ethical point of view in sports, because it's bad to cheat when you compete against each other. But as Rick Collins, the attorney at law of the bodybuilding community, says, 80% of the steroid users are not bodybuilders and people who compete. They are recreational people who just want to boost their self-esteem, or they want to be more sexy, or whatever.
True.
And they are the usual gym rat or the beach boys. So there's no fear of getting busted, in a drug, in an anti-doping thing. Now, the other thing is that the medical community is skeptical. Why? Because theoretical according to the Hippocrates law, a healthy individual is not supposed to get prescribed a drug from a doctor. And as we know, anabolic steroids, they were manufactured from physicians in order to treat certain symptoms and diseases, like anemia, cachexia, poor low bone mineral density, hypogonadism, low libido, or some other things. Now, you know that the majority of doctors have no relations with bodybuilding and lifting weights. Most of them are not trained, and they have not combined this unique thing about lifting, using drugs, and know the theoretical point of medical information. So it's very rare to find people like Dr. O'Connor or myself who are open-minded in order to discuss and not how to get doped, but how to preserve your health as long as you want to do this thing, because you are an adult and I cannot deny to you and say no. No is an easy answer. The point is how to manage to proceed without dying, you know?
George, I agree. Now, can you imagine? I hope this is seen by 6 million people. The truth of the matter is, listen to him. Listen to what he's saying. It's true.
I'm not against steroids. Neither I support steroids. I support information. You know, so the suspected user knows the pros and the cons before he uses. Okay, and then it's his responsibility.
It's an ethical responsibility, Ron. That's all we're doing is we're providing on two sides of this ocean. We're ethical. We've talked personally for years together and shared notes. We professionally and ethically feel that we need to provide education to people that are not using steroids to understand what could happen, and for people on steroids, we provide education and treatment and management and diagnostic skills and management skills for people that are on heroin and cigarettes and too much food. How do we not miss millions of people on steroids? It's unethical. Now we put the onus on physicians that, hey, you can't let that person walk out of your clinic, and put your ego aside. And this is not cheating. These are people that are using it for personal reasons, and they could get hurt.
Right. Dr. T, I'm just curious, in your country, Greece, are steroids available freely?
Yes, of course.
And they're legal. You can buy them.
Yes.
Wow.
We have 3 different kinds of steroids. We have testosterone in different esters. We have the NMFET, we have the Nebido, which is the Avid, the androcanonate, and it also has the transdermal testosterone. You used to have also the oral andriol. Now, we also have nandrolone decaonate, the decadraboline, and we also have misterolone, the proviron. Now, all of them, you can get them from the drugstore, but the exceptions of DECA, you need a prescription. But it can be prescribed in case of a bone fracture, you know, but in small doses. For instance, this patient was diagnosed with a bone fracture, so I advised him to use 50 grams of nandrolone per week for 1 month. So this is not for bodybuilding, you know.
50 milligrams would do nothing for a bodybuilder.
Yes. Also, you can use proviron in case of low self-esteem and low libido or low cognitive function. And of course, testosterone for replacement therapies. But in Greece, mainly these 3 different types of drugs, they are used by bodybuilders 90%. It's the second or third choice of an ordinary individual to go to the drugstore and say, give me this, give me that, okay? Yeah. The medical community is very skeptical, and even an orthopedic surgeon would not suggest the use of DECA to speed up the healing process after a surgery.
Wow.
Or in case of anemia, they say, okay, use EPO, not testosterone, or oxymethylone, for instance.
No, it's amazing, and you know, the literature, it's true, and it's in this country, you would never, here I am with a pec tear, my doctor did a great job in repairing it, but there was no discussion, and I'm not putting him down. There's just absolutely no post-operative discussion on other agents that could facilitate, not for muscle building. I tore my pec off the bone.
Off-label, you can use DH, Thomas.
and we understand that, and IGF alpha and so on and so forth, but it's amazing that why are we not looking at these agents apart from the political side? These are agents that have been around for a long time. We know a lot about them, and certainly have side effects. Why aren't we dealing with this with people that are older and debilitated, Dr. T?
Maybe the big pharma does not want these drugs to sell because there are alternative other drugs that sell more.
But for age-related, let's talk about this. Age-related sarcopenia. Forget bodybuilding.
Yes.
Forget us young guys. Forget the young guys and the egos and the cheating. What about you have a 75-year-old man or woman who is they have osteoporosis. They have age-related sarcopenia, which means
yes, you're right. I agree.
And they're home, and maybe they haven't broken their hip from a fall yet.
Absolutely.
And they're wasted. They're cachectic, but they don't have cachexia from any cancer specifically. They're cachectic and wasted because they're just 75. Or 85 or 95. Why aren't we using those agents?
Believe me, Thomas, many docs are not aware of this, of the positive benefits of steroid use, anabolic steroid use.
See,
they are ignorant.
Is there studies, Dr. T, that have shown age-related sarcopenia has been reversed and protected?
Yes, of course. Also in burns, when there's a patient with excessive burns, they give him oxandrolone in order to diminish the...
Yeah.
Yes, Anavor, of course. Actually, in the States, you have Anavor and DECA, I think, and testosterone propionate.
So here's a quick story. Years ago, I had a patient that was burned, unfortunately, throughout probably 90% of his body. He ended up at a burn center. The wife calls me up, says, he's in the burn center. It's been about a week. Sorry, we're calling you. They won't even start his testosterone on him. And she knew enough. He was obtunded. He was intubated. He was unable to speak. He's alive now and doing pretty well. He suffered greatly. She said, "Doctor, can you please, this is another part, from one part of my country to another, it's another state far away from where I am here in Connecticut." And he said, "Can you call?" I talked to the attending, and he not only agreed to start, he apologized. It was an oversight, he said. We apologized for not starting testosterone. And he said, and as a matter of fact, we're going to start Anavar on top of testosterone. This is a board-certified physician that was running, that's a pulmonary, he's an expert in the ICU. And there's a good example right there. He did testosterone plus Anavar.
Speaking of that, Ron Harris, Milo Sartin, in your interview, he confirmed that he had a severe burn, and his doctor asked him, "You want to get you on steroids?" He said, "Yes, please."
Yeah.
So that was just, the wife called me, and I made the call to the attending. And if no one called the attending, if no one called the doctor, he had no problem with it. We have to move forward.
But in minor doses, in 10 milligrams, not in 100 milligrams. That's the difference.
They gave 10 milligrams on top of his physiological dose of testosterone.
To reverse cachexia, yes.
And the burns, right? So the energy level, he's so catabolic that's what, when you're burned, your body...
Yes, you lose plasma from the...
That's right. The protein, the blood proteins, it's so, and you're so catabolic that you need anabolism. So that's there's studies on this. So this is a venue for us to George and I, Dr. T and I, we use evidence-based medicine. We're not cowboys. He uses all articles. I see them all the time.
There was a case in my country of a 52-year-old man who had multiple sclerosis for the last 30 years. He was disabled in a wheelchair, and he approached me, and he was desperate completely. So he said, "I have nothing to lose, and I'm in your hands." So I prescribed him testosterone, nandrolone, and sterolone, and he also used a little bit of growth hormone from the black market, and he was able to stand up from the wheelchair and move for 10 steps, Wow. And he recorded that, and he showed it on public. I'm not saying that neurologists are not treating him, but from the musculoskeletal point and the neuromuscular conjunction, it can improve with steroids,
Absolutely.
And his strength, yes. He also used creatine, BCAAs, glutamine, whatsoever. And his clinical condition, he was remarkably improved.
I'd have to throw this out there because the Labor Day is coming up, and we always used to have this big telethon that the late Jerry Lewis put on for many years for muscular dystrophy.
Wow.
And
Yes.
you guys have to correct me, but in my little pea brain with no medical training, I always thought to myself, muscular dystrophy, why don't they just give these people steroids? Wouldn't that help them in some way?
The Duchenne muscular dystrophy, that also happens to the heart. And they give myostatin inhibitors, follistatin.
Okay.
Now, see, Dr. T knows more about this stuff than me because he's a biopathologist.
Yeah.
And that's interesting. Actually, I worked in a lab at New York Medical College where we were studying Duchenne's muscular dystrophy. And you know what? One of the agents we were studying?
No.
Clenbuterol.
Wow.
Really? Have you watched the Nutty Professor with Jerry Lewis? With the little mouse that grew up?
Yeah.
So here's the thing, and I put this to the world. It's time now to put the politics aside and to look at on an ethical side, what can we learn from these millions of people that are using steroids to help people?
Yeah.
I don't understand. Of course we do understand. And if I don't wake up tomorrow morning, I mean, it's money, you guys, right, Dr. T and Ron?
Yeah.
Yes.
These are generic. These are old and cheap medicines. You know what's going to happen. They're not fools. These big pharmaceutical company guys, and I'm not putting them down. They want to make an agent. It's going to be a SARM. Let's talk about SARMs. What's going to happen with SARMs, Dr. T? Where are we going?
Well, there were a few boys that came to my office. They told they confessed that they were using SARMs from a supplement store, or these agents, by the way, are prohibited from the USADA and WADA as banned substances. So they use SARMs, and specifically YK11 and the other one, the
MK?
no, the very how you say they're very well known, they're very famous.
Osterin?
Osterin, yes,
Okay.
Osterin. So I saw their labs, and what I noticed was remarkable transaminemia, three digital, so above 100 both AST and ALT, and also dyslipidemia, low crushed HDL and sky high LDL. So I'm assuming this agent works similarly to the 17 alkylated oral steroids, which are hepatotoxic and cardiotoxic. And they also noticed a crash on the libido and HPTA. So the alleged scenario that SARMs do not affect the axis is a fraud, because all these guys, they want a PCT afterwards in order to elevate their endogenous testosterone. So SARMs, they are supposed not to enlarge the prostate or to make thinner the hair, because they are supposed not to act on androgen receptors and be just anabolic, which is the perfect scenario. But it's not that like that. They need to be examined more, and they're not so innocent as people believe.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. They were supposed to be giving you all the benefits of steroids with much fewer side effects. So
Yeah, the androgenic side effects.
it sounds like that's not really true.
But they actually have side effects in liver and in cholesterol profile, dyslipidemia.
But you know what the interesting piece is? Obviously I know a lot about SARMs. I get hammered on that question all the time. Is that are those really SARMs on the black, or were they just were this Anavar? Or the question is, and the next question is, what's in there specifically in the study that came out of Harvard that I was in the New York Times with Dr. Shalander Bashane, where he did a study and he took 100 off the internet. They bought SARMs, and 50% of them were bunkus. So right, that's an interesting study right there. And if you really have SARMs, then if you really have the SARM, which there's like 5 out there, right? If you have it, you know what the doses that were hypothesized clinically? Do you realize that the Broscience dose is like 100 times higher? So if you have a SARM that may actually protect someone to be a little stronger and help someone get a little healing and to reverse and have a stronger leg muscle, so when she falls, she can actually get up and not stay on the ground and suffer. So with that, there won't be a profound effect like the steroids. So they go up so high, and then when they're that high in a dose dependently, then you have these cardio and hepatotoxicities dose dependently. What we need to study it. We need to study.
The same happens with testosterone. The TRT average dose is 100 milligrams, and the bodybuilding dose is 1 gram.
Okay? Well, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dr. T, I wanted to ask you, do you have a lot of patients that are current steroid users?
Yes, sure.
Okay.
Yes.
I mean, what measures do you take with them to help? They're going to use them whether you want them to or not. Whether you try to convince them, please stay off the steroids, they're going to use them anyway. So what measures do you take to keep them as healthy as possible while they're going to do these steroids for their own pursuits?
Well, most of them, the 3 main side effects are erythrocytosis, which is high hemoglobin. So I suggest them to use on a daily basis a baby aspirin, plus to blood donate or undergo a therapeutic phlebotomy every 3 months. Also, for the dyslipidemia, I suggest them certain agents such as niacin, krill oil, phytosterols, rice yeast, to quit from smoking, to do a daily cardio at least 30 minutes, to consume essential fatty acids, to avoid trans fat and refined sugars, and also for pharmaceutical hepatitis, I suggest them to use injectable glutathione or NAC oral, milk thistle or Li52. Avoid paracetamol, which is a painkiller, which is hepatotoxic, and also I advise them to quit alcohol. Also, sometimes rhabdomyolysis, which is excessive overtraining, can affect ALT and AST, but to a minor degree. I also notice homocystinemia, which is elevation of homocysteine, which is it is linked to strokes and cardiovascular disease, and I give them B12 folate and 2-methylglycine, TMG, betaine.
Okay.
Now, in renal, in GFR, when it's low and when creatinine is high, I suggest them to quit from creatine, to hydrate properly, to quit from non-steroid anti-inflammatory drugs.
Yeah.
This is basic stuff.
George, let me ask. And that, can you hear this? I mean, this is what other doctor in the world is going to be able to rip off stuff?
Thomas, doctor, medical community does not support supplementation. They don't believe in it.
But I'm going even deeper. You just ripped off. You just went through a dissertation on the pathological features. It's internal medicine. It's steroids affect adversely in the end of the day the heart, the kidney, and the prostate, the red blood cells. You hit them. Now, what do we do? Who are they? How much are they using? Does that man have hereditary hemochromatosis? Right, George? So
yes.
George is a doctor. You can't. And then let me diverge the bro science guys and the gurus. A lot of them are sending people to me and George, and they're helping. It's a team, and we don't discriminate and put each other down. And there's no turf war going on. It's me and George in the world.
I think there's plenty of business for both of you.
We're doing okay. I mean, we'll meet somewhere in Greece and have a drink. I mean, it's just crazy. Listen to the way he's talking. You have to be a physician. He understands that. He's doing everything he can to help them. And I know he's telling them also, be careful and don't even do this if you don't understand there are risks. We've shared that with each other. He's proceeding forward and saying, proceed at your own caution. And then he is finding medicine to help and therapeutics. And he's also evaluating. And when he finds someone that has a hematocrit that's so dangerous or hypertensive, he's stopping them and sending them to another doctor to refer. So
I suggest them every time before entering a cycle, donate blood. Throw away blood cells in order to have a lower hematocrit, and then you get in the cycle. This is the first preventing rule.
It's probably going to help. George, do you have data on that? Is there any supportive data for this behavior, for this procedure?
About what? A blood donation before?
Anabolic steroid users, with or without using phlebotomy and being protected from strokes and heart attacks.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed this for myself, Thomas. My hemoglobin is between 18 and 19, And, before I started my TRT, it was 15, So it is well known that anabolic steroids and testosterone stimulate EPO from kidneys, and this stimulates in turn red bone marrow. So it does practically the same job, but the blood viscosity gets dramatically high, and the blood becomes much thicker. So as a blood thinner, you have to use fish oil and aspirin.
But my question is this, and I agree with you, but is there data, Dr. T, is there medical data supporting anabolic steroid use, lobotomizing, to be protected from a heart attack or a stroke?
No, this is a precautious thing. You have to go. This is logic, isn't it?
So there's no, see, this is why we need to come together, and Dr. T, you and I
hope to see you
study
at the Arnold next March.
We need to study. See, we need to do a randomized plus prospective, double-blinded. We need to do a study, right, George? I mean, George and I have. How about, like, we have 100 ideas. We have a plethora of blood pressure.
Thomas, the problem with too many phlebotomies, it can lower ferritin and iron.
I see men becoming paradoxically anemic.
Yes.
So let me ask you this, George. Man is on steroids, hypertensive. What do you do?
Well, hypertension can be also the result of aldosterone stimulation from steroids, okay? This is a basic thing. Also, it can be the result of aromatization and estrogen production because you have edema. Now, a basic, in modern cardiology, a basic thing to lower blood pressure is to use diuretics, okay? But also you have AACE inhibitors.
I love this.
Okay, you have also the calcium, the converting enzyme.
Calcium. Yep.
You also mentioned about beta blockers that lower the heart rate and lower submaximal, effort. And also, I believe polycythemia is a part. When you have more blood volume, then it pushes the vessels, inside the lumen.
It's multifactorial. It's a multifactorial state. Yes. So right there, boy, I never have gotten that response out of any doctor in the world. I don't even ask the question anymore because they don't know. So ACE inhibitors and aldosterone, boy, see, I'm happy. I'm like tickled right now because I got an answer, and I'm sure, Ron, you and everyone else is sitting back going, what?
Aldosterone.
Never heard
aldosterone inhibitors.
What's aldosterone?
Never heard that connection before.
You use spironolactone, aldactone, okay?
Spironolactone, yeah, sure. So I do it, and it depends on, you ready for this? And Georgia loves this stuff. It depends on the history. Is it a black man or white man? Because they have different histories for treating underlying hypertension. It's not racist goddamn thing. So you estimate a GFR. It's based on, there's so many variables. And then when you understand the pathophysiology and the medicines, you meld them together. And that's why George and I protect people on steroids. There's nothing.
And also, smoking elevates blood pressure because nicotine is a vasoconstrictor, right?
But George, you crazy? No guy's smoking. Bodybuilders here, no one smokes. But I love Europe. They can bodybuild and they can smoke.
They all smoke.
Isn't that funny? But American guys, I know a couple American guys smoke, but no American guys smoke really that are bodybuilding and weightlifting and using steroids, right, Ron?
Well, I can tell you a lot of American bodybuilders smoke marijuana, a lot of them.
That's true, but they don't smoke cigarettes.
They do not smoke cigarettes, no.
But it's funny that I was thinking, one of my responses, I would say the same thing pretty much as Dr. T as far as, the aldosterone and this and looking at the red blood cells and all this great stuff. But I never would even mention, like, quit smoking. But there's a cultural difference. They smoke over there.
Yeah.
Smoking, also elevates further hematocrit because the CO, the carbon monoxide, gives a signal of hypoxia, and then the EPO as a result is boosted,
Can you imagine this show? This is the best show. I usually get so lame because I'm the only guy answering the questions.
This is great. So here's my chance to ask a quick, we've asked you this, doctor. Guys, a lot of guys watching this show are using steroids, and some of them care about their health. What are the safer ways to use steroids? Are there certain steroids, Dr. T, to stay away from? Dr. O'Connor is convinced that tren is the devil's juice, and that's one thing he advises people against is trenbolone. what steroids would you tell people stay away from these? These are too toxic.
Okay, I'll reverse and I'll rephrase, which is the less toxic.
Yeah, sure.
So it is testosterone, use preferably testosterone, DECA, and Primo.
Okay.
These are the less, they are the non-17 alkylated. Now, Trenbolone is not 17 alkylated, but has also so many side effects because it's very androgenic. In emotional status, also on the prostate, on the hair thinning, also elevates blood pressure and the thickening of the heart. So, of course, the 17 alkylated orals, they have to use it sublingually under the tongue. And you know why? Because when you let it dissolve under the tongue, it enters through the tiny capillary network to the circulation like it's been injected. So you bypass the first hepatic entrance from the portal vein, so it's a safer way to let them dissolve beneath the tongue and use them.
Oh, I didn't know that. So if you can find liquid versions of steroids, like a liquid D-ball or a liquid Winstrol, liquid Anavar, and that will be taken sublingually, it's not going to be as hepatotoxic as taking the pill version?
But George, so we're not, we got to have a little controversy. So that's thought to go through the lymphatics and the capillary lymphatics of the head and neck. And I don't know this. I'm not sure that eliminates fully the first pass effect. I would have to research that.
Well, because imagine when there's a heart attack and a cardiology patient uses nitroglycerin under the tongue. Okay, so
for rapid absorption.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. It enters straight to the bloodstream.
Okay.
Without going to the stomach and then through the portal circulation to the liver.
Gotcha.
So these are the things. Boy, this should be a whole separate show, right? We can just have clinical cases and we can both analyze them together. And there's other doctors, by the way. There's other doctors in the world that know what we know. They just don't. You ready for this? They just don't have the balls to come out like we came out.
Well, they're afraid of retribution from their peers, right?
I've shown that there's no need to. I've shown that there's no need to be a fear because America's good. The ethical side is true, and we're progressive, and we need to take care of people properly.
But we have to admit this is a taboo subject, okay?
But there's no need to break any laws.
It's a taboo subject, both for users and both for doctors. And generally, the community and the society is very skeptical and believe these things are unethical and should be banned and whatsoever.
Is that attitude the same over in Europe as it is here, though? Or is there more of a accepting attitude towards steroids? I've always wondered that.
Yes, the bodybuilding mainstream, the bodybuilding community, and the all this attitude, and it's kind of to the side. And
what I'm getting at is we've talked about with Dr. O'Connor. If a heroin user in the United States or an alcoholic comes in to see a doctor, he gets empathy, he gets sympathy. There's never any hesitation that they're going to treat this individual and do as much as they can to keep him healthy, to protect his health and longevity. But if a steroid user comes in to a doctor in America, he's often looked at with scorn and treated like a second-class citizen. And
yes, exactly the same here.
Same here.
Okay.
Yes. That's terrible.
They're very patriotic. Yes.
Well, let me ask you a question. So there are parts. I'm not going to mention what countries because I have patients like George all over the world. There are parts of Europe that are more liberal in accepting the steroids. I mean, I'll tell you one place. The UK has decriminalized steroid use. They're way ahead of us.
They use, yes.
So, but there are other parts, and I'll tell you who it is. I'll say it. Scandinavia.
Sweden.
I mean,
Sweden's the worst.
I mean, okay. I mean, this is, and again, I'm being very gentle. I'm just saying that they're supposed to be very progressive, but they are regressive when it comes to this ethical standpoint, dealing with men in their country that are using steroids like anyone else.
Yeah.
So
Possession
I don't understand that.
Yeah, possession in UK is not prohibited. Marketing is prohibited. By the way, Scandinavia has the best powerlifters, huh?
Yeah, that's well, metal powerlifting. I think Finland or Sweden. I mean, these guys are the best powerlifters in the world.
How do they manage to get all these things? It's underground, obviously.
Well, here's a question for both of you. Do you believe that adult men, let's say let's say 18 or 21, I don't know what age you want to set it at, should steroids be something that people can get with the prescription for the purpose of cosmetics? You know, just like women get fake boobs and fillers in their face and big fishy fake lips injected, why can't men get a prescription for steroids to have bigger muscles and feel good about themselves, be bigger and stronger, feel sexier and more confident?
Yes. It's a good point, and Rick Collins had this topic in the latest Muscular Development magazine.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Ron, what the cosmetic thing brings hyperdoses. You cannot get jacked with 50 milligrams of Deca or 10 milligrams of Anavar.
Right.
So in case somebody wants to look better, he has to abuse, and abuse brings the plethora of side effects. This is the point here.
Yeah.
So
Well, Dr. O'Connor, you're prescribing for TRT purposes 100 to 200, maybe 250 milligrams a week, which for someone like me, that's not going to cut it. For most of the people watching this that want to get big, that's nothing. That's just not going to cut it.
So instead of me usually launching off, and I'm true to myself and true to my supporters who criticize that I don't answer the question directly. So question number one, how do I respond to your question, Ron, that Dr. T responded to? Okay, I'm an American physician. I have a license in 2 states in this country and a federal license. So I cannot say that I agree with that until we do studies. But so I answered the question directly. So my answer is no, I can't until we study it. Number 2, in part to your, Ron, is that I do treat with testosterone for two different purposes, really, essentially. TRT, and I offer weaning based on literature that we have in this country to wean and to treat a man ethically who is on steroids. And I use ancillary agents. We all know Clomid, HCG, and antiestrogens, much more of HCG than anything else. And
sure.
weaning doses based on Mayo Clinic, Harvard guys, Cleveland Clinic. So I'm supported with my evidence that a man who's on steroids who comes to see me or any doctor, and he's been on long enough, and you know his HTPA, the hypothalamus pituitary gonad, he's gonna suffer and maybe potentially, which I've seen too many times, commit suicide. So we have no choice. Ethically, I'm well supported and covered by my peers, my other physicians, that we have to do something and not let that man walk out the room. So you're right, though, Ron. I don't give muscle building doses, but men come to me, and I'm very busy because they're ready to see a doctor and to get off steroids and to be cared for. That's what I do.
So
it's a fact that withdrawal syndrome is horrible. It's horrible.
The withdrawal syndrome is deadly.
Horrible.
So I think basically what Dr. T said, it makes a lot of sense, is they couldn't really ever be a legal drug that would be available because the amounts that people like me would want to use are just too excessive, and they are inherently dangerous in those amounts.
True.
Okay. So we'll just keep using the underground.
But it's better than nothing, eh? It's better than nothing.
Yeah.
But see, we're progressing though. See, but we're physicians, and we both inherently agree, and we're on two sides. We're on two sides of the world, almost.
Yeah. Dr. T, what do most of your patients come to you for? Are they people that are trying to get off steroids, or are they former steroid users that are trying to get healthy again? What's the majority of patients that you see? What are their issues?
The majority is after the ending of a cycle, and when PCT is through, they notice a crashing libido and their mood, their self-esteem, their muscle, the fat gain. So basically everything went wrong through the PCT, the post-cycle therapy, and it's the hormonal disability. And then also we discovered the dyslipidemia, the transaminemia, and the erythrocytosis, but these are not so mainly side effects, the clinical. Yeah. However, the low libido is very important, you know, for the self-esteem, and something that everybody notices when they cannot satisfy their sexual partner. So basically this is to restore the HPTA, and afterwards also to improve their lab work.
Okay.
Well, same thing. I concur. It's the same thing. That's why they come.
People are all the same everywhere.
It's all the same. We're trying to bring attention to it. George and I are going to open up a company educating doctors. That's our next move.
I want to see you the next Arnold, okay?
Thanks, Arnold. So
We got some ideas.
Dr. O'Connor, we've talked about PCT before, and for someone that's been using steroids for many years, I think we agreed it's kind of pointless because they're never going to recover normal production again. So is PCT pointless for someone who's basically shut down and they have that gonadism state because they've been pushing synthetic steroids into their body for 10, 20 plus years?
Wow. Based on the evidence, we have no idea. But it gives us an inkling that what you're saying is right. But I use PCT, if you will, for a young man because you have to use something for him, and you have to offer him the opportunities to wean off with PCT, and then also using weaning doses of testosterone esters. George agrees. We talked about it.
Yeah.
But in the end of the day, we don't, after 10 years or 5 years or 20 years on steroids and testosterone, you put him on testosterone and you take care of his heart and his kidneys and make him feel good. And then I use HCG, usually never Clomid, for fertility.
By the way, Thomas, a typical endocrinologist does not support and does not suggest the classic PCT. They believe HCG is something for women to boost their fertility. Okay, so on label, it's not prescribed, neither for men. So it's this HCG protocol, 1,500 units every 3 days for 2 weeks, is something like, let's say, bro science, or this is between the bodybuilding community that works.
But here's the thing. First of all, it's changing, George. I have doctors doing this, initiating it, and then saying them to me. It's changing, George. You know who I see more? Urologists are changing faster than endocrinologists in America. I see a lot of guys coming to me because they end up seeing a doctor for hypogonadism, steroid related. The doc doesn't know what to do, so the doc refers them to one of two doctors, urology or endocrinology, right? Then they always end up coming to me if they know about me. So in the end, but before they come to me, someone's doing something, putting their finger in the dike. So I see that they give them either Clomid, which is usually wrong. It's okay, they didn't know any better, or they do HCG. So it's working, George. We're changing.
Yes,
I see it over. This has been 10 years of work together. So it's changing. Today is unbelievably different. I was talking to a patient last night, and he said, Doc, it's so good. So many people are changing. Doctors' attitudes are changing. So we're doing it. Ron, thanks Steve Blackman for the show. It's working. People are agreeing. You can't not agree with what we're saying. We're progressive. We're being very conservative, and we're being very careful. We're using evidence, and we're doing the right thing.
Okay. Now, I want to have Dr. George on for his own Ron line in the future because, there's a lot of questions that the viewers would want to ask and so forth. And I want to give you, Dr. O'Connor, a chance to ask him a couple more questions for this episode before we wrap things up. What would you like to ask Dr. George?
All right, George.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question. So you talked about SARMs and steroids. Give me the 5-year and 10-year prediction, anabolic steroids use and SARMs. What's going to happen?
I believe SARMs, they're like prohormones. They were famous once upon a time. They blew, and then they're going to be forgotten because they work, but they have also side effects, and they're not as innocent as people think. Also, there are not so many reports, scientific reports, that support how SARMs work. We know how steroids work for the last 50 years, since the 60s, the late 50s. Now the steroids, it's also a matter of politics, I don't know, medical community wants to prescribe other drugs more that they sell, or they want to support Botox, or they want to support silicone implants, and they're not supporting the recreational use for somebody who wants to look better. So, I don't know, I believe it's also politics, but according to the anti-steroid propaganda in the early 90s, after the Ben Johnson scandal in Seoul Olympics, many anabolic steroids that were withdrawn from the pharmacy store, like Masteron, Primobolan, Parabolan, okay, that are used for HIV patients and for cachectic cancer patients. And this, negative propaganda caused that these drugs that were later manufactured by underground labs that were contaminated with heavy metals and with lower doses or with microbes, So the real stuff is gone because of the anti-steroid propaganda and all this prejudice against the steroid community.
George, what is going to happen? What's going to happen in 5 years and 10 years with steroid use in the world?
In Greece, we used to have Primobolan 20 years ago and was getting myself from the drugstore without a prescription. Now, every decade is worse, okay? We used to have Winstrol, we used to have oxymethylone. Now these things, for medical purposes, for breast cancer, for anemia, for a variety of different symptoms. So they are disappearing as time goes by.
What's going to happen, George, in 10 years? What is the young guys? Is there going to be more? Look at the steroid use today. We don't even know the numbers. Hundreds of millions. Mm-hmm. Who knows?
It's a sad thing getting the underground things that it's not official. They do not have the ISO, approval. And I was also contaminated from an underground lab the first time I switched from the pharmaceutical company, and then I had an intramuscular abscess.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many horror stories. Myself, just my little circle of friends who use underground steroids. There's so much contaminated crap out there, so much stuff that they loaded up with benzyl alcohol to boost up the concentrations. It's garbage, and
they make them in a bathtub,
Yeah,
in a bathroom.
My last question, George, Dr. T, is steroid use on the upswing among 20 to 30-year-olds?
Yes. They want to use steroids before even knowing how to train and how to eat. So it's the shortcut, the easy solution, how to get jacked in 2 years of training without having 5 meals a day or training enough or training with a cell phone. So
social media is doing this, and it's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah.
Yes, true.
I want Dr. George. I want people to know how to get in touch with you to get your book and so on. This is a great book. I'm only about a quarter of the way through, but I do intend to read the whole thing over the next couple of days. Bodybuilding, the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. So you have a website. It's gtoul.com. Is that right?
Yes.
And how else can people get a hold of you? Instagram?
Instagram and Facebook, and they can find me on Anabolic.org website of William Llewellyn, and also on Anabolic's book.
Okay.
I have written a chapter. Yes, and I hope one day I'm going to meet Dr. O, and we have our show face to face.
Why not? Okay.
George, thank you so much, and Ron, and thank you so much for offering this platform.
It went by like that, didn't it?
Thomas met Rich Piana in the previous Iron Classic.
Wow.
Yeah, it's about a year now since Dallas and Rich passed away.
Yeah, they just had the 1 year anniversaries of both of them last week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing the best we can. George, thank you so much.
George, I will be in touch with you because I want to do a full interview with you.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
After I finish the book and get the Olympia out of the way, I definitely want to have you on my Ron Line Report show. Dr. O'Connor, you're the one that thought of this. It was a great idea. Make sure to check out Dr. O'Connor's websites, anabolicdoc.com, metabolicdoc.com. Both of those have his links to his YouTube channel, his social media, and all that good stuff. So definitely check all that out. These two are gems. They're the only two doctors really in the world who are there for us. The bodybuilders, the power lifters, the people who do what we do. So thank you both, doctors. We all appreciate what you're doing, and please keep up the great work that you do. So
thank you, Ron. Thank you, Dr. T.
For Ask the Anabolic Doc, starring Dr. Thomas O'Connor. It's been Ron Harris with our special guest, Dr. George Touliatos. Thanks for watching, everybody.